If you don't know the story about the 6 blind men and the elephant, you're going to know it after this podcast. Well, hi there. My name is Charles Ray Dawson. I am the Associate Broker, Residential Sales Manager at ProStar Realty. This is the Unnamed Real Estate Podcast, episode 242. And I hope you guys are all having a good day. So, the reason... Just give you a little background. It is relatively early in the morning for me to start recording or everything, but I was here till about 8 o'clock last night, and I'll go into the details of why. Well, not all the details, but I'll explain why here in a little bit. And decided to leave my laptop here, overnight, and then wake up in the morning. And all of a sudden, when I don't have my computer, I suddenly feel very, very motivated to get into the office early. Maybe I should try to figure out some way to keep that up. Not a lot of real estate news that the consumer would be really interested in so far. We're seeing the rate cut start to impact mortgage rates and everything like that. And I'm not going to quote you a rate, and I'm not going to tell you what you need to do because your mileage may vary. So if you are interested, talk to your lender. If you need a lender, give me a call, and I have several to choose from. But along those lines, it does dovetail to last week's episode into today's episode. I reviewed last week's episode and stuff, and it's amazing what sounds like a coherent statement in my head can come out a little garbled, as when I review it on tape. And that's the interesting thing, is because I spent a lot of time last night reviewing a very particular tape, right? But like I said, when I was talking about the elephant and the 6 blind men. If you do not know this story, this is one of those things they should be teaching in junior high. All right. And yeah, I think the reason why they don't teach this to you in junior high is because you might start second guessing your teachers, and teachers hate that. Trust me, I've known that since like the 3rd grade. All right. Never let your instructor know that you are smarter than them. I keep telling myself that, and I keep forgetting it because, God, I'm ever so clever. So, last night, let's get the elephant out of the way. For those who don't know what the elephant and the 6 blind men were introduced to an elephant, and they were each asked to describe the elephant. Every one of the blind men touched a different part of the elephant. All right. One guy grabbed the tail and went, "Oh, wow. Elephants are ropes with a big bushy thing on the end. That's what elephants are." Another one grabbed him by the leg and went, "Oh, they're like tree trunks. Elephants are trees," and so on and so forth. All right. So your perception of a particular incident may be completely different. Last week, when I, talking about the insider trading and the information that's available to the public and the information that people have, right? We have laws against people buying and selling stocks based on information that is not made out to the public. We don't have that in real estate, at least not that I'm aware of. If you know otherwise, please show notes below, because wow, I need to really go over my some of my risk management stuff. But good case in point, right? There is a freeway going into Arizona. Did you know that? I knew that. It's going to be starting somewhere around Tucson, and it's going to cross the border, and it's going to go all the way up to Canada, and it's going to parallel out to the west of Phoenix, right? These were announced in the news. And what I mean by announced in the news, meaning that the government agency that was going to do that made a statement, probably on a Friday, all right? Brought in the 3 reporters who pulled Secretary of Transportation duty that week and said, yeah, we're going to be putting a new freeway in. It's going to start in Arizona. It's going to end in Montana. It's going to be over here. We think we're going to start it right around Tucson or south of Tucson, and it's going to go to the west, and it's going to go through all of this unincorporated, undeveloped land, and it's going to go all the way up to Canada. And this will help us with our NAFTA transactions. All right? So, for people who pay attention to these things, they're suddenly very interested, because you know what a freeway brings to you? it brings economic benefits to people adjoining the freeway. Now, if you own that little particular piece of land, the federal government decides to put a freeway from, that could be a good or a bad thing, right? They're going to try to buy it from you at fair market value, all right? And if you own an acre out in the middle of the desert with no utilities, no water or anything like that, completely undeveloped, it's going to be worth about $9,000. Okay, don't quote me on that because those are numbers, from years ago. All right, but if you have utilities and access and water, all of a sudden that acre of property is worth a lot more, depending on its location. So if a freeway is going in, you are suddenly very interested in knowing where the freeway is going. Because if the freeway is going right across here, and you buy this little parcel of land right here, right? They're not eminent domaining your property and buying it for you at bare land rates, which is what they're going to do. If you don't sell, they'll take it from you. Thank you, Kilo versus New London. All right. But if they develop that land, all of a sudden your little parcel is worth a lot more. A lot more. So there were land speculators out there, finding the people out there who had hundreds of acres out in the middle of the West Desert, and they were picking it up for a song, right? Speculating that that's where the freeway was going to go. Now, did you know about this? Right? No, because you didn't read the news reports. All right? For that particular press statement that was made at that particular meeting on a Friday, but people who did have the information to make that speculation. Now, hold on for just a second. This is one of those calls and we're back. Okay, so where was I? Oh yeah, we were lost in the desert. So landowners out there who had that particular parcel but did not know about the freeway going through, all right, sold their land at a price that they were happy with until they found out what that speculator's plans were. All right, shame on them. All right, that's what the lack of information can give you. All right, but hear me out. If they've been sitting on that land for the last 150 years, or at least their family has, and they haven't been able to move that land, all right, they want to sell it, but nobody will frickin' buy it, and they're just having to pay property taxes on it. It's a net loss to them. Maybe somebody coming up and saying, hell, I'll offer you $1,000 an acre sounds like a windfall to them. So they were happy to sell it at that price. See, this is the thing, and this is why I want you to be educated. This is why the most important thing you can do for your friends and your family and your children is educate them in these things. Right? I'm really starting to, look at things, and it's like, it's not how hard you work, it's how much you know and then how you apply it. So these speculators threw money at the land on the off chance that the property was suddenly going to be worth something. So as soon as the freeway route is actually announced, some people made money, some people didn't make money. But all of the land adjoining changed in value all of a sudden. All right. So now, a lot of cases, I'm pretty sure there was a lot of lobbying going on out there because this is America. And, the first thing you do when you become a billionaire is buy yourself a couple congressmen. They're cheap, right? And you start lobbying for where the off-ramps are going to be. Right? We've seen this before in the West. Okay, for you guys who did not grow up in the West, this is something that's been handed down through the generations, right? In the West, when they were putting the rail lines through, right, it was really big to make sure the train track went through your little town. And it was really big to make sure the train track stopped in your little town, right? That made or braked cities, right? Whether or not you're going to have access to the rail. And then later on, whether or not the freeway, the intercontinental freeway system, thank you, Eisenhower, all right, that was put in close to your town, or was it a little bit off? What happens if I-15, right, coming up out of Las Vegas, right, and going to Salt Lake, had actually jumped over to the other side of the mountains and gone up 89, and maybe tied in more to Phoenix, so you'd had Phoenix to there in a straight route. instead of going through Vegas. Right? That means all those little towns on the other side of the mountain range that US 89 goes up to suddenly would have been much, much bigger cities, like Cedar City or Park City. Right? See, this is how information works. Now, me and two other blind men last night were here till 8 o'clock because we're watching a video about an incident that happened. We were appointed to review this incident and come up with our findings. Right. And it's a very short clip. It's like minute 45 seconds long. That's it. Right. We're watching this incident for a minute and 45 seconds, and we don't have sound, but we do have a very good camera angle. And because of the camera angle, we were able to identify everybody in the room. Right. We watched this video probably more than that Zuberger whatever film, the Kennedy assassination. All right. We're rewinding back and forth. All right. Who moved what hand? Da 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 da. And we watched it a couple times, and then we went through 10 separate witness statements. Right. 10 separate witness statements. And I contacted each one of these witnesses individually. All right. And asked them to either write me a formal statement or, hold on for a second, somebody's having a bad day. So either write me a formal statement, call me back and leave a voicemail that would be considered your formal statement, or you had the option to decline to make a statement. All right. So we had a total of 10 at the end of the day. And just watching the difference between what people would say to me and then what they would put down in writing was amazing. I mean, there was some like serious Game of Thrones action going on in this entire thing. It was, you could tell who was team who, right? And you could tell which ones were trying to cover up their actions and amplify the other person's actions. And I like to think that between me and the two other guys, we came up, which what we jokingly said is the decision that will piss everybody off. All right? Because much like politics, if nobody likes your idea, it's probably the best idea because nobody's getting 100% win nowadays. Right? But like I said, it's that same thing that people want you to believe certain things. Right. And I got a really great example that hit this morning. You remember over the last couple months, the person who was running the Bureau of Labor Management or whatever, who ran the numbers for unemployment and whatnot, lost her job. All right, because her numbers were coming inaccurate. Her work product was inaccurate, was the reason given. Right. A month later, all of a sudden, new revised numbers, and we suddenly realized we had 1 million less jobs created last year in 2024 than was being reported. Now, running off of those numbers, because those are like the little dials on the airplane that we use to drive the economy, it is really important to know whether or not your compass is pointed true north or is off 15 degrees because it's tied into the, magnetic north. And if you do not know the difference between those two, never go navigating without a map. Use your phone. All right. But these are really, really important things to know. And the compass was off. All right. There's a statement out there saying, well, they were throwing the compass off on purpose because they wanted the country to go a little bit more to the left. All right. And we wanted to go to the right. So they were skewing the numbers. Numbers came in this morning stating that the second quarter of 2025, right? And this is our finalized, and our gross domestic product actually grew by 3.8, which is great. Okay. You need to get at least 2. 3 is considered good. 3.8? Wow. I honestly think that if they had that 3.8 numbers, we would not have gotten the Fed rate cut. That would have been a good reason not to, because we don't want to kick over into inflation. And that's almost inflationary levels of growth at that. But I'm not an economist. Right? But 3.8, they were originally reported as 3. And then they were modified to 3.3 after more numbers came in and they crunched it a little bit more. And then the final numbers are at 3.8. All right. In the second quarter. So that's between April through June. We're just wrapping up third quarter right now. All right, so we don't know what the third quarter numbers are going to be at. We will get initial numbers in October. And then, like everything else, okay, second quarter ended in June. So July, August, here is at the end of September. And now we're getting the final. So if we get what's considered the true and final numbers for this quarter that we're currently in, we're not going to get until right around Christmas. And honestly, nobody pays attention to the news right around Christmas. So the reason why I wanted to go down this entire rabbit hole of, verifying the information and the facts and figures that you get, all right, looking at your sources, all right, constantly vetting the sources you use for accuracy. All right, we had 10 statements of a 1 minute and 30-second video, and there were 10 different stories. There were 10 different stories going on. Who said what first, who moved first, but there was a theme. There was an overarching theme. All right. And we started having to come up with a hard and fast rule as we went through this. Is it being verified by anybody else? If two witnesses state something that happens, we are going to hold that a lot more than if one witness did. We'd had witnesses stating things that we never saw on the camera. All right. And we went to that and we'd look and said, does anybody see what that witness is talking about? All right. So, and this is the same thing with anything. Economists fly the airplane by looking in the rearview mirror. All right. That's one of the things that we're always going to have. They don't have a crystal ball. You can't sit there and say right now, this second, how many people are employed in America. It will take time for those numbers to get reported through the pipeline. All right. But what you can do in your life is you're looking at your goals, your plans, your intentions and stuff like that. And you can gather the best information you have at hand, vet it. Do you trust this source? All right. And this is a personal thing of mine, is that this source tells you something. This source refutes what this source says. How did they do it? Did they make a straw man argument? Okay. Did they engage in ad hominem attacks? Oh, you only believe that because you're evil. All right. Or did they specifically come out and go, yeah, that study that you just quoted there doesn't say what you think it says. All right. At some point, you need to make a decision. Right? You can bounce back and forth between the two. But a really useful heuristic that I personally use is the first person that starts calling the other side names, they're the one who's wrong. Right? In the absence of any other information, if you make a decision quickly, who's calling the other person bad names? Oh, he's an idiot. Right? Yeah, okay. Once you hit that point, that means you can't refute their argument. So, where are we at in real estate right now? Let me show you what the numbers as of yesterday morning. Now remember, okay, I went through these things on a Wednesday just to show you these are Wednesday numbers, 9 o'clock. Okay, they're not accurate today here at 10:30 on Thursday. But actives at 9 o'clock on Wednesday were 24,355. They were up 378 from the week before. The new listings were 2,190, down 24. Our contracts are 1,992, which was down 79. Our closings are 1,409. Coming soon to an MLS near you is 595 new listings. All right. Cromford report numbers, okay, showed supply actually went up a bit to 97.7. Our demand actually dropped a little bit to 79.2, giving us a Cromford report number of 79.5. And remember, we were a little bit at 80, so we're actually sliding more towards the buyer side. Was this what I expected to see? No, it was not. Okay, but we have had 2 active weeks in a row, all right, where listings have gone up, and our contracts are starting to back off a little bit. All right. Coming soon, like I said, those houses may or may not actually go active. And there are houses that will be going active that are not listed as coming soon. All right. I could almost argue to get rid of that whole thing. I just like seeing the words coming soon to an MLS near you. All right. And that's why I leave that little circle there. But what we have right now is historically, this is our fall season kicking off, and we always have another surge of listings right around that. So why are we down to 24? That just is contrary to what I just told you, and that's where it gets fun. Okay, because past performance is not evidence of future performance, right? But it helps. Let's get a little bit more granular. Let's try to break it down a little bit more, because this is overall. And then we start getting very into the specifics. Man, I really shouldn't try to use the big words I only read. All right, and from the top, we can see Fountain Hills has moved to number one place. All right, they're at 156.5. All right, they're up 18% from this time last month. Paradise Valley has fallen to number 2 place, and they're down 21%. The other losers are Glendale and Maricopa. Poor, sorry little Maricopa. All right, but everybody else is increasing and moving more towards the seller side. All right, our obvious sellers markets right now are Fountain Hills, Paradise Valley, Scottsdale, Chandler, Cave Creek, Avondale, and Gilbert. Right, with Gilbert being the weakest of the sellers markets. All right, our balanced markets right now are Phoenix, Mesa, Glendale, and Peoria. Peoria being the weakest of the balanced market. All these other ones are considered buyers markets, right? Tempe, Goodyear, Surprise, Queen Creek, Buckeye, and Maricopa. Right? If you wanted a deal based on the information that I see, right, and you wanted the most bang for your buck and the most negotiating power, I would be looking at Queen Creek, Buckeye, and Maricopa. All right. If you don't like that side of the town, all right, you got Goodyear. If I wanted something closer to in town, I would be looking at Tempe. All right. Or Peoria. Okay. But Peoria is the lowest of the buyer's market. So you really lose a lot of your negotiating power there. And then you got to go into the specific deal. All right. So you look at the market, you look at the city, you look at the specific house. I'm looking at a house that's 240 days on the market. 240 days on the market. It's north. It also smells like dog and babies. And not dog babies. Dogs and babies. All right? So when my client comes up and says, hey, they're asking this, can we come in 20,000 low or 40,000 low? I'm like, yeah, let's roll the bones on that one. But that's not what you do on the house that just hit the market and you've been told that an offer has already been made. Very specific to the situation. All right. And I think that's what heuristics and general rules of thumb and everything like that are great when you're trying to make decisions quickly, and you can just get into that, we call it analysis paralysis, where you just sit there and keep spinning out because you won't make a decision. And I believe it was Patton's great quote, a quick plan executed with maximum violence will beat the perfect plan 3 weeks late. God, I love that, man. So, a quick plan with maximum violence. I actually think I get in a lot of trouble because of my juvenile sense of humor and my use of violent imagery. I could probably be a little bit more professional. I'm 54 years old. It's a little late for me now. But it's not late for you. Go forth. Be professional. Watch children and pets around in the water. Don't drive in anything flooded. All right? Work your circles. Call your mother. Have a great weekend. Thank you very much for your time. And I'll talk to you guys later.